Our next speaker is a fellow change maker and disruptor, Adam Vasco, who's going to be talking all about how to challenge the status quo. Good morning, Adam. It's lovely to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you too, Hannah. Great event so far. You're doing such a great job, everyone. Well done.
Fabulous. Over to you then. Let's hear your call to action and your goals for the system.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Right. So let's see. Hopefully, there we are. We're away. Okay. So yeah, as Hannah's talked about there, do disrupt, change the status quo. I was given this as a journal, as a present. It's a book journal by Mark Shaler. Just jotting some things down by a friend, and it really resonates with me, as did Christina's talk before about being united in disruption. So I think I'm going to start off by an admission. I love data, and I know that's a really weird thing to say as we talk about these things. But critical race theory talks about the need for interest convergence. So we have to use the vehicles that we have in order to be able to get a buy-in. And the buy-in for me is to say that the system is broken, or perhaps it's doing exactly as it's intended to. And obviously, I've got that picture of Ken Robinson's famous TED talk. Local lad, by the way, he's from Liverpool. So yeah, Scouts is changing the world everywhere. And essentially, I really do think that this is in the DNA, and as he said, the fabric of education, the gene pool of education, of how we think about education, academia, thinking of academic things, abstract things. And it's nonsense. Education was born in the likeness and image in the interests of economics and the Industrial Revolution. And we need a revolution in education. But the revolutions happen from within. And it's down for us to be. The revolution won't be televised, as in it's not going to be something that's led by other people. That's the uncomfortable truth with it. And I think a theme from today in terms of goals is that there are lots of uncomfortable truths, getting increasingly comfortable with being uncomfortable. We've all heard that said before. And we jump through hoops despite knowing that isn't quite the right thing. So I'm putting it to us that essentially at this moment in time, and I put myself firmly in here as well, I hope that we can try and convince you that we are moving in the right direction. We're part of the problem. We jump through hoops despite knowing things isn't quite right. So let's think about the current craze and drive around curriculum. Great, of course, curriculum is absolutely important. When wasn't it important? As educators, when was not that the focus that you thought about? What do I need to teach? When do I need to teach it? In what order? And those types of things. Have those knowledge organizers, curriculum maps, the roadmaps, and all those things, and the intention and implementation, those 3 I's. Have they made a sustainable difference and dent on that data? Nationally, they haven't. That's the reality of it. So it's about, let's use again that interest conversion. The Read Write Inc. sort of report has come out about from the EEF. Is anyone surprised that it doesn't necessarily work? You need a bought-in scheme. Phonics, okay, might be important. We don't need a bought-in scheme for those things. So why do we jump through the hoops? I don't think we can continue to blame the system. We are the system, or certainly part of it. So we do have to disrupt, we do have to change the status quo, or we are the status quo. I was sent of this by a friend, and I talked to some of the things that we're beginning to do. I literally mean beginning to do it at the University of Wolverhampton where I work. And, just because we've done things a certain way doesn't mean that we should continue to do it. And yeah, amen to that, absolutely. I mean, originally, and I see myself as an early years practitioner. So, as that, what did I do? I saw the strengths of children, provided opportunities to further those. I looked at areas for development, providing multiple opportunities to scaffold, free play, taught sessions to develop. And the early years, it gets so much right. And I think we could learn so much from early years education. And then we get to this whole idea of GLD, and maybe there's the first type of sign that we begin to value certain things. And what I love about some of the things about the early years, about those affective characteristics of learning, we have the importance of physical development, PSED, but already the knowledge and understanding of the world and creative development drop off in terms of what is important for a GLD. I just want us to think about that for a minute. Knowledge and understanding of the world is taken away as is one of the things to move on from. There's a real disconnect there. I really think so. And then, as we move into key stage 1, 20% roughly of children nationally aren't ready for the year 1 curriculum yet. We hammer on at those things, and and how often do we actually see that curriculum being embedded into year one? And maybe it is, maybe it's just my experience of things, but that was my experience, not too much. As a primary educator, I go back and I was really fortunate to sort of cut my teeth in a school community where we did focus on curriculum and what our children needed in the early to mid noughties, that long time back. And we knew that in a school where we had huge areas of high social deprivation, we were one of the most deprived wards in the country. See the way I'd be able to rattle all this off, because we had to justify it when Ofsted came in. But we knew that cultural capital was going to be absolutely key. And, you know, what we needed to give was the opportunities the children, which other children may have, but for our children, they didn't. And that was almost the underpinning of all our curriculum. As a result of that, our children did exceptionally well. I'm not here to talk about, we've done an amazing job, but we were in a really challenging area and our data was some of the best in the city. So we did change things. We were out everywhere. We did what we thought we needed to do. And it was a real eye-opener for me, I think. And I think it again comes back to this thing of the data being that, you know, ultimately that's the thing that we're judged on. So if we can have an impact on some of that, we can narrow some of those gaps, then Ofsted, regardless of, you know, let's not talk about them too much in some of the misdemeanors that have even happened over this week. We don't do things for them, but they are a vehicle and they come and make judgments. But no one can argue with what we do to make a change, because at the moment we have a set of data that says that what we do doesn't work for a large proportion of people, and that's a model, I think, and we really have to make that change. So bringing you up to where I am now, and now work as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the University of Wolverhampton, across the Faculty of Education, Health and Wellbeing. It is a broad church. It takes in, I'm now out of my comfort zone of just being education. We're looking at health, nursing, sport, psychology, lots of those different things. And I think that what has really struck me is that in a situation where I've got the agency and autonomy to make change, then we are going to do some of that. We are going to challenge the status quo. We're going to go back into what the gene pool of academia is, and assuming what, you know, the changing and disrupting and getting rid of some of these assumptions of things, because it really is inbuilt. And genuinely, I believe that we're sort of part of the problem, not the solution at the moment. I know there's brilliant work, and I know I'm preaching to the converted, and listening today, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting the people that have listened to part of a problem, but as a sector, we will only change if we do unite in disruption, going back to what Christina said. And I love that image there, you know, of you know, that whole thing, if you judge a fish and its ability to climb a tree. That's what we need to do. The system's got to be totally disrupted, and it isn't about making reasonable adjustments. The system was made, it was born, you know, this is a bit like, I compare it a little bit to the American idea, you know, pro-Second Amendment. It was an amendment. It tells us that we can change things. Systems and things have been written, rules have been written. We are able to change them. And I think there's a moral obligation to that. I haven't launched it with academic quotes or anything else. And instead, I do like a few things from pop culture. And I was running around the other day, and a bit of Biggie came on, Notorious B.I.G. And it starts off, to all the teachers that told me I'd never amount to nothing. And you think, wow, there are multiple times, yes, we see in education when we see the impact people can make. You know, we see whether it's Ian Wright, or we've seen Adele, we see Harry Styles reaching out in recent times, you know, to their teachers. What about those times where, because of the system that we have, because of how narrow we look at things, that we've missed genius in our class? Notorious B.I.G. Biggie Smalls was in someone's class, and the teachers would tell me he wouldn't amount to nothing. That Paul McCartney and George Harrison went to school together and didn't do that well in music. There was genius in those classrooms. And how many times maybe has genius been in our classroom and our classrooms, and maybe we haven't quite got to realizing that genius. And so for me, it comes back exactly back to what Christina was saying. It is about us absolutely changing the system, and we use that convergence of interest. You know, thinking about the data tells us that for large groups of people, we are not doing the right thing. We have a moral obligation to address that, a moral obligation to change that. And we've got every data set to say it isn't working. I think as leaders, that's our moral responsibility to make a change. And with the greatest will in the world, if we carry on just doing the same things, I'm not entirely sure that we're going to get a huge change. I think that was 10 minutes. And I sort of managed to time myself. Was it 10 minutes?
It was 10 minutes. You were absolutely bang on, Adam. Nice to meet you in person. It is an absolute pleasure to listen to you. I'm fascinated by kind of macro level systems, and I've watched the Sir Ken Robinson the animated shorts, and it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me that there was a system designed to very much uphold the forces of capitalism, and that we have continued down the path of and reinforced that capitalist model. This is where people accuse me of being a communist. Now, what I'm interested in is, what does disruption of that system actually look like in practice? Where do we put in those interventions? How does that shift?
So it's like anything else, I guess. So when we're thinking about being an ally in any way, and as Nova Reid talks about that thing of learning, unlearning, and responding. For me, that's the same thing. So ultimately, it's about going back into the system and thinking about what is it that we really do need to change within there. So within things like higher education, for example, and we value, we put this huge value on research. And research is absolutely important. Of course, that's incredibly important. And actually, in higher education, the route to progression is best seen through research. It's becoming a doctor, a professor, readers, all those types of things. What we don't reward as well is the practitioners who are on the ground making a difference. It's about going into the fabric of it and completely challenging things, of us deciding why is it that we value. So in higher education, again, academic writing is essentially the gatekeeper whether we are successful or not. So in those areas of professional practice that we're looking at in my faculty at the moment, do our best attaining students, those who get first and 2-1s, are they the best teachers? Are they the best midwives? Are they the best podiatrists, best psychologists? The answer is no. There isn't a direct correlation. So what are we doing then? What is that? So that we've got an attainment gap, but the attainment gap is assessing what? And I think that's what's happening even when it comes to in schools as well. We are so narrowly looking at children. I give an example of, it sounds like a bit of a boast, this, and I suppose it is because I'm dead proud of it. I'm a Liverpool supporter, and when I was in school, we've been lucky enough that a young boy, Curtis Jones, who currently plays in Liverpool's first team, was in our school. Curtis would still say now he would describe himself as being thick. Now, he has potentially, that's genius level. To get to being that successful in such a small pool. If we've got a system where he thinks he's not succeeded in education, yet he is a genius at something, we are doing something very, very wrong. So I'm not saying I have all the answers to it, but we have to challenge it. I'm certain.
I absolutely agree. And to me, it strikes me that actually it comes down to metrics again, isn't it? We are obsessed as a society with measuring progress, and we have been for a very, very long time. And there's that conflict between, I guess, non-Western pedagogies, which is partly what we're talking about here, and the need to categorize that is very much part of Western European culture, and that clash is hard to reconcile.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not. I think this is the uncomfortable. It's not a system that's failing. It's a system doing exactly what it was set out to do. It benefits a certain group of people. And until we really challenge some of those things, I think we've got an issue. It's really interesting when you look at the public sector, and David Lashaga talks about this. The public sector and things like education, health, and the places where we think of being liberal bastions, really, of those types of things. It's probably where diversity is at its worst, and we see inequality in its greatest impacts. And I'm not saying that the private sector is suddenly some wonderful bastion of or utopia of diversity. However, if you can put money on the table, and if that's what we're talking about, they'll let you succeed. They don't care about anything else. So I think that this type of thing of basically education it's gatekeeperism, and unless we really start to challenge that, and because we benefit from it sometimes. So I'm in a really senior position now. I've done well through being through the academic route as such, but we've got to put the drawbridge down to let people come back up. Otherwise, we're just hypocrites. I think.
I know it feels like we can go around in circles in this, but because the system is so intricate, and you really have to dig into the history of education, assessment, measurements to be able to really kind of start to unlearn it, and I think that's something that we're all talking about, this process of unlearning. Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I am very much hoping our paths will cross again soon.